That isn't your medicine, Maid's daughter said. Exposed billionaire family's $75 million inheritance scam. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get started. In a world where the wealthy live behind high walls of privilege and power, it is easy to overlook those who serve them. People like Anna, the 10-year-old daughter of the Vance family's housekeeper. Anna had always been invisible to the rich and powerful who inhabited the mansion. She wasn't supposed to be seen, let alone heard. Every day, she cleaned, kept quiet, and stayed out of the way, just as her mother, Abigail, had taught her. Anna's mother had worked for the Vance family for years, silently serving the wealthy family in their sprawling estate. Abigail had a quiet dignity, always doing her best to remain unnoticed, hoping that one day her daughter would have a chance at a better life. Anna had been raised in the shadows, spending her days in corners, unseen and unheard, only occasionally interacting with the family's young children. However, that day was different. As she quietly dusted the elegant dining room, her attention was drawn to a hushed conversation between Callahan Vance, the patriarch of the Vance family, and his wife, Delilah Monroe. They were talking about the family inheritance. Callahan, a man with sharp eyes and a heart even sharper, had built his fortune from nothing. But there was something dark beneath the surface of his wealth. The inheritance, a staggering $75 million, was meant to be divided among his family members. But something felt off. Delilah, though beautiful and poised, seemed increasingly desperate as she spoke in hushed tones to her husband. The conversation was about the will, about money that wasn't rightfully theirs. Anna stood frozen, cleaning supplies in hand, her breath catching as she overheard bits and pieces of the conversation. Something was wrong. Delilah was speaking of a plan, a scheme to manipulate the inheritance in a way that wasn't legally or morally sound. Anna had no idea what the details were, but she could feel the weight of it, the injustice of it all. She could see the glint in Callahan's eyes as he nodded along, his face betraying no emotion as Delilah outlined their plan. As Anna stood there, her heart began to race. She had always been taught to stay quiet, to be invisible, but today something deep within her stirred. She had to do something. She could no longer turn a blind eye. She knew something the others didn't. The truth about what was really happening in the Vance family's world of luxury and deceit. That's when it happened. As Delilah casually reached for a bottle of wine, Anna, who had been standing in the corner of the room, spoke up in a voice that cut through the tension like a knife. "That isn't your medicine," she said firmly, her small voice shaking with the weight of her words. The room fell silent. Callahan turned sharply toward her, his face momentarily frozen in disbelief. Delilah's hand, mid-motion, paused in the air. For a split second, it felt as though time itself had stopped. Anna had made her move. Her words had struck a chord, exposing the scheme they had worked so hard to hide. And in that moment, everything began to change. The room was still, the tension palpable. Callahan Vance stared at Anna as if she had just conjured a storm out of thin air. His mouth hung slightly open, unable to process the words that had come from the housekeeper's daughter, a mere child. Delilah, who had been the picture of elegance just moments before, was now frozen, her hand still poised over the wine glass. She looked at Anna with a mix of disbelief and disdain, as if she had never considered that someone so lowly could interrupt her plans. Anna's heart pounded in her chest, but she stood her ground. She had seen enough, and she knew what had to be done. The silence in the room stretched long and heavy. Callahan finally broke it with a sharp, "What do you mean? That isn't your medicine." His voice was low, dangerous, like a predator circling its prey. Anna didn't flinch. She had nothing to lose. She had already said what needed to be said. "I saw the bottles. The one for your father. It's not the right one," she said, her voice steady, though her hands trembled slightly. Callahan's eyes narrowed, and Delilah's face turned pale. She took a deep breath, masking her shock with a forced smile. "You're just a child, Anna," Delilah said, her tone dripping with false sweetness. "You don't understand these things." But Anna wasn't buying it. She had been working in the Vance estate for long enough to know what certain labels meant, what certain pills looked like. She wasn't naive. What she had seen was a carefully orchestrated scam to replace her boss's medications, an act that could have cost him his life. Callahan's expression shifted from disbelief to something darker. He was beginning to realize that this wasn't a mistake, and it certainly wasn't a joke. Delilah's plan was unraveling, and there was no going back. "You should go," Callahan said coldly, as if dismissing her like a bug that had just been swatted away. But Anna didn't leave. She knew she couldn't back down now, not after what she had seen. "No," Anna said, her voice gaining strength. "I won't leave. I'm not going anywhere until you fix this." Delilah, looking uncomfortable for the first time, tried to regain control of the situation. "You have no idea what you're talking about," she said, her smile faltering. "This is none of your concern." "It is now," Anna replied. "I'm the one who found out. And I'm not the only one who will know." For a moment, there was no response. The tension in the room grew thick, as if the walls themselves were closing in. Callahan looked at his wife, then back at Anna, his mind racing. The silence was deafening. Finally, he spoke, his voice quieter, almost resigned. "What do you want from me?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. Anna knew this was her moment. She could feel the weight of the family's future in her hands. "I want you to fix this," Anna said, her voice firm but not unkind. "I want you to tell the truth. Not just to me, but to everyone. What you're doing is wrong." Callahan's gaze softened, just for a moment, and Anna saw the man he had been before the wealth and power. But it was fleeting, and the cold exterior returned quickly. He turned to Delilah, his eyes telling her all she needed to know. It was over. The scam was exposed. "You're right," Callahan said, his voice quiet. "We'll fix it. But this isn't over. Not by a long shot." With those words, Anna knew she had won. The scam was no longer a secret, and the power dynamics had shifted. But she also knew this was just the beginning. What would happen next was out of her hands, and though she had exposed the truth, she had no idea where this would lead. But one thing was certain, she had taken control, and there was no going back. The Vance family would never look at her the same way again. The days following Anna's confrontation with the Vance family were tense and uncertain. The mansion, once a place of power and wealth, now seemed cold and unwelcoming to Anna. She had done what no one else had the courage to do. She had exposed the truth. But with the truth came consequences, and Anna knew that things were about to change forever. The Vance family had promised to fix the situation, but Anna was unsure if they would follow through. As she continued her daily chores, she could feel the eyes of the family on her. Callahan had kept his word, but the weight of his promise hung heavily in the air. Delilah, too, had become quieter, her usual sharpness replaced by an uncomfortable silence. Anna had become a sort of outcast in the house. No longer was she the invisible maid's daughter. She had become a symbol of truth, and that made everyone uneasy. One evening, as Anna was cleaning the main hallway, she overheard Delilah speaking to Callahan. Their conversation, hushed at first, became clearer as she approached. "You know we can't just let this slide." Delilah's voice was sharp, laced with frustration. "The damage has been done. People will talk. We'll never be able to regain control of this situation unless we act fast." Callahan's response was calmer, but there was a hint of worry in his tone. "I know, but we can't go back. The truth is out there now, and it can't be hidden. We'll have to make adjustments, but we have to be careful." Delilah scoffed. "Careful? We're not talking about a few million here, Callahan. We're talking about $75 million. This is bigger than our family. This is about our legacy." Anna froze in her tracks. She had never heard Delilah speak so openly about the money before. It was clear now that the stakes were higher than she had imagined. The Vance family wasn't just trying to cover up a simple mistake. They were fighting to protect their wealth and their legacy. Anna's mind raced. She knew that whatever came next, it wouldn't be easy. The next morning, Callahan called a family meeting. Anna was ordered to remain in the kitchen, far from the main discussion, but she could still hear the muffled voices echoing from the large dining room. "We need to act quickly." Callahan's voice was firm. "The longer we wait, the more people will start asking questions. The media will catch wind of this, and once it spreads, there's no going back. We can't afford to lose control now." Delilah chimed in, her voice sharp. "We'll take care of it, Callahan. We've handled worse. But we need a plan that will put us back in charge." We can't let a little girl ruin everything we've worked for. Anna's heart sank. It was clear now that the Vance family would stop at nothing to protect their wealth. They saw her as a threat, a disruption to their carefully crafted world. She had become a pawn in their game, and she knew that her fight for justice was far from over. That evening, as the house settled into a false sense of calm, Anna sat alone in her small room. She stared out the window, the weight of her actions sinking in. She had exposed the truth, but at what cost? She had hoped that her actions would lead to change, but now it seemed as though the family was preparing to fight back. She couldn't help but feel a sense of dread. The Vance family would not let her win so easily. But one thing was certain, she was not backing down. The truth had been exposed, and there was no turning back now. Anna had made a promise to herself, and to the memory of her mother, that she would stand up for what was right, no matter the cost. The days stretched on, and the tension in the Vance mansion only grew thicker. Anna could feel it in every room, in every glance, and in every quiet conversation. The truth was no longer hidden, but the family's reaction was far from what she had hoped for. The Vance family was preparing for a fight, and Anna had become the unexpected battleground. Callahan had promised to take care of the situation, but Anna knew better than to trust empty words. He had a way of speaking in circles, always promising change but never delivering. Delilah, on the other hand, was a different story. She was ruthless, and Anna could feel the shift in her demeanor. The woman who once treated her with casual disdain now looked at her with cold calculation. It was clear that Delilah didn't see Anna as a person anymore. She was a threat to everything Delilah had worked so hard to maintain. And when Delilah looked at Anna now, it was with the cold eyes of someone who would stop at nothing to protect her wealth. Anna had become a target, and she knew she couldn't back down. As the days passed, the pressure mounted. Callahan began to make his moves, quietly speaking to lawyers, making arrangements, and trying to distance himself from the scandal that was slowly consuming his family. But he underestimated Anna. She had seen the cracks in his armor, and she knew how to exploit them. One afternoon, while Callahan was away meeting with his lawyers, Anna overheard Delilah on the phone in the study. "We need to fix this now." Delilah's voice was low, almost a whisper. "The longer we wait, the more people will talk. We need to make sure Anna doesn't go public with this. She's the only one who knows the full truth." Anna's heart raced. She had been right all along. The Vance family wasn't going to let her go so easily. They were already plotting to silence her. But Anna wasn't afraid. She had already come this far, and she wasn't about to let them win. As Delilah ended the call and stepped out of the room, Anna moved quickly. She knew she couldn't stay in the shadows anymore. She had to take control of the situation, and she had to do it now. She couldn't rely on the Vance family to do the right thing. It was up to her to expose the truth once and for all. That night, Anna went to the local police station. She had no idea what she was going to say, but she knew it was the only way to get the truth out there. The officers at the desk looked at her with surprise when she walked in, a young girl standing alone in the station, but Anna didn't hesitate. She explained everything about the fraudulent medications, the inheritance scam, and the plan the Vance family had to cover it all up. The officers listened carefully, taking notes and asking questions, but Anna knew the hard part was just beginning. The Vance family had money, power, and influence. They could make this all go away with a few phone calls. But Anna wasn't backing down. She had nothing to lose, and she knew that the truth was worth more than any amount of money. The next few days were a blur. Anna continued working, trying to keep her composure as the storm of the Vance family's secrets grew ever closer. But it was only a matter of time before everything exploded. And when it did, Anna would be ready. She had already exposed their lies, and now, with the truth in the hands of the police, there was no turning back. The Vance family's world was about to come crashing down, and Anna was the one who had set it all in motion. The days that followed Anna's visit to the police station were filled with uncertainty and fear. She had done the right thing by speaking out, but she knew the road ahead would not be easy. The Vance family was powerful, and their wealth could easily silence her. Still, Anna held on to the hope that the truth would prevail. But as she walked through the mansion, she could feel the weight of the situation bearing down on her. Every time she passed a room, she could feel the tension in the air. It wasn't just the silence of the house. It was the silence of a family that was being torn apart by secrets and lies. Callahan Vance had become a shadow of the man he once was. He was no longer the confident, controlling patriarch of the family. Instead, he was a man who had seen everything he had built begin to crumble before his eyes. Delilah, too, had changed. The woman who had once been full of ambition and control was now frail, her usual sharpness replaced with anxiety. She spent most of her time in her private quarters, avoiding Anna and anyone else who could remind her of the disaster that was unfolding. As the days went by, Anna continued to work in the background, doing what she had always done, cleaning, washing, and staying out of the way. But in her mind, everything had changed. She was no longer the invisible housekeeper's daughter. She was the one who had brought the truth to light, and now it was only a matter of time before the world knew what the Vance family had done. Then, one evening, as Anna was finishing up her chores in the kitchen, she heard the sound of footsteps approaching. She turned to see Callahan standing in the doorway, his face tired, his eyes red from lack of sleep. He looked older than usual, the weight of the situation clearly taking its toll on him. "Anna," he said, his voice softer than she had ever heard it before. "Can we talk?" Anna was taken aback. For the first time since she had exposed their lies, Callahan seemed genuinely concerned. She nodded slowly, unsure of what to expect. "I don't know what you think you've accomplished, but things are getting worse," Callahan continued, his voice shaky. "I know you think you're doing the right thing, but there's a lot more at stake here than you realize." Anna crossed her arms, standing her ground. "I did the right thing, Callahan," she said, her voice steady. "I couldn't just sit by and watch what you were doing to your father. The lies, the manipulation, it all had to come out." Callahan sighed, looking down at the floor. For a long moment, there was silence between them. Anna could see the conflict in his eyes, the struggle between doing what was right and protecting his family's legacy. "I never wanted things to go this far," he said finally, his voice low. "But now that it has, I don't know how to fix it. We've lost everything." Anna's heart softened at his words, but she knew she couldn't back down. "You could start by telling the truth," she said, her voice calm but firm. "It's not too late to make things right." Callahan met her gaze, his expression unreadable. After a long pause, he nodded slowly. "Maybe you're right. Maybe it's time to face the consequences." Anna had no idea what would happen next, but she knew one thing for sure. The truth was out, and no matter what the Vance family tried to do, they couldn't take it back. What had been exposed would change their lives forever, and Anna was ready for whatever came next. The power had shifted, and it was no longer in the hands of the Vance family. The truth had won. In the days that followed, the tension in the Vance household was almost unbearable. The family was in disarray, each member processing the consequences of the scandal in their own way. Callahan had promised to come clean, but Anna knew that simply admitting the truth would not be enough to repair the damage. The public had to know the full story. The media would soon catch wind of the scandal, and once that happened, the Vance family's reputation would never be the same. Callahan, once a man of control, was now grappling with his own guilt. He had made decisions that had led to the destruction of his family's integrity, and Anna's actions had forced him to confront those choices. But Anna was not done yet. She knew that exposing the truth would not be easy, and she was prepared for the battle ahead. One morning, Anna found herself standing outside the grand gates of the Vance estate. The weight of everything she had done was heavy on her shoulders, but she could not back down now. She had seen enough. She had witnessed the manipulation, the deceit, and the lengths the Vance family was willing to go to protect their wealth. And now, with the truth on her side, she was ready to face the world. As she walked toward the street, she was approached by a reporter from the local news. The woman, holding a microphone and a camera, looked at Anna with a mixture of curiosity and anticipation. "Anna, are you the one who exposed the Vance family scandal?" she asked. Anna hesitated for a moment, but then she nodded. "Yes, I am," she said, her voice steady. "I couldn't stand by and watch what they were doing. The truth had to come out." The reporter's eyes widened, and she motioned for Anna to step into view of the camera. "This is huge, Anna," the reporter said. "The Vance family has been one of the wealthiest and most influential families in the city. What made you decide to expose them?" Anna took a deep breath before answering. "It wasn't about money or power," she said. "It was about doing the right thing. The Vance family had been covering up a fraud that could have cost people their lives. I couldn't just stay silent." The reporter nodded, her camera zooming in on Anna's face. "And what happens now?" she asked. Anna looked into the camera, her eyes filled with determination. "Now the truth is out, and there will be consequences. The Vance family can't hide anymore." As Anna walked away from the reporter, she felt a sense of liberation. For the first time in her life, she had spoken her truth, and it was being heard. The Vance family's empire, built on lies and manipulation, was crumbling. But Anna had made sure that they couldn't hide behind their wealth and power any longer. The truth had set her free. As the days went by, the Vance family faced increasing pressure. The media swarmed around their estate, and their once stellar reputation was tarnished. Callahan, who had always been the master of controlling the narrative, now found himself in the spotlight for all the wrong reasons. Delilah, who had once ruled the household with an iron fist, was now a mere shadow of her former self. The world had turned against them, and the consequences of their actions were finally catching up. But amidst the chaos, Anna remained strong. She had done what she had set out to do. The truth was out, and there was no going back. The Vance family's empire may have been built on lies, but Anna had proven that one person could make a difference. The power of truth had changed everything, and she had become the force that would reshape the future. The aftermath of Anna's decision to expose the truth was far from the simple victory she had hoped for. The Vance family's world had been turned upside down, but as the dust began to settle, new challenges began to surface. The media had descended on the mansion like a swarm of vultures, relentless in their pursuit of every detail. Journalists camped outside the gates, their cameras capturing every moment, every gesture, every hint of vulnerability from the Vance family. Callahan had been forced into a corner, his once mighty empire now crumbling under the weight of scandal. Delilah, too, found herself isolated, her plans falling apart as she tried to salvage what was left of her public image. Despite the pressure, Anna felt a sense of calm that she had never known before. She had done the right thing, and though the consequences were difficult, she knew that she couldn't let herself be swayed by the chaos around her. But the real shock came when Callahan reached out to her. It had been days since their last conversation, and Anna had expected him to remain distant, perhaps even to retaliate. But instead, he asked to meet her. Nervously, Anna agreed. She had no idea what to expect, but she knew that whatever it was, it would be significant. When they met, Callahan was different. He was no longer the arrogant billionaire she had once known. He looked tired, beaten down, almost like a man who had lost everything. "Anna," he said, his voice softer than she had ever heard it. "I've spent my life building this company, this legacy. I thought I had everything under control, but now I see the truth. I was wrong." Anna could barely believe her ears. The man who had once manipulated and controlled everything in his path was now admitting his mistakes. But she didn't let herself be swayed by his words. "You can't just say you're sorry and make everything go away," she replied, her voice firm. "The damage has already been done. Your family has caused harm to so many people, and that can't just be erased." Callahan nodded slowly, as if he understood. "I know," he said quietly, "but I can try to fix it. I can't undo everything, but I can start by being honest. I want to help those we've wronged. I want to make it right, Anna. Will you help me?" Anna was silent for a moment, considering his words. It was clear that Callahan was sincere, but she wasn't sure she could trust him. She had seen the worst of him, and it would take more than words to undo the years of manipulation and deceit. "I don't know if I can help you," she said finally. "But if you're truly willing to make things right, I'll stand by you. But it won't be easy." Callahan's face softened with gratitude. "Thank you, Anna. I know this won't be easy, but I'm ready to do whatever it takes." With that, the conversation came to an end. Anna left the meeting with a heavy heart. She wasn't sure if Callahan could truly change, but she knew that if he was sincere, there was a chance to rebuild what had been broken. It would take time, and it would take hard work, but the possibility of redemption was now in his hands. The truth had already shattered the Vance family's world, but perhaps, just perhaps, there was a way to rebuild it with honesty, integrity, and the hope that change was possible. As Anna walked back to the mansion, she knew that her journey was far from over. The fight for justice was just beginning, and she was determined to see it through. She had set the wheels of change in motion, and now it was up to those who had been responsible for the lies and the harm to step up and do the hard work of making things right. As the weeks passed, The Vance family's attempt to repair their reputation continued, but it was clear that the damage was deeper than they had realized. The media storm had not calmed, and every move they made was scrutinized by the public. Despite his earlier promise to change, Callahan found that rebuilding the family's name would not be as simple as admitting guilt. The weight of his decisions, the years of manipulation, and the lies were like a heavy cloud hanging over him. But for the first time in a long while, he understood the true cost of his actions. Delilah, once the powerful force behind the family's wealth, now found herself overshadowed. Her polished exterior had cracked under the pressure, and she was no longer the woman who controlled the mansion with an iron fist. She had become a shadow of herself, unable to maintain the facade she had so carefully constructed for years. Anna, on the other hand, found herself in a new position. The media, once focused on the Vance family's downfall, now turned their attention to her. She had become a symbol of courage, someone who had exposed the truth and had the strength to stand against the powerful. But even as her name appeared in headlines and her story was shared far and wide, Anna felt a sense of unease. The truth had come out, but she knew that it wasn't over. The Vance family was not going to give up without a fight, and as they scrambled to salvage what little was left of their fortune, Anna couldn't shake the feeling that the worst was yet to come. One evening, Callahan reached out to Anna again. He seemed more determined this time, his tone less guarded. "I know I can't undo what's been done," he said, his voice steady. "But I want to make it right. Not just for me, but for everyone we've wronged. I know you don't trust me, but I need you to believe that I'm trying to change." Anna looked at him, unsure of what to make of his words. She had seen him at his worst, and she couldn't forget the years of manipulation, the lies, and the control. But something in his voice told her that he was serious. "I don't know if I can believe you," Anna replied, her voice quiet but firm. "But I'm willing to give you a chance. You need to show me that you're different. Actions speak louder than words." Callahan nodded, a flicker of relief passing over his face. "I understand," he said, "and I'm willing to do whatever it takes." As they continued to talk, Anna began to realize that while the truth had shattered the Vance family's world, it had also opened up a new opportunity for change. It wasn't just about exposing their lies. It was about forcing them to confront their actions and make amends. The road ahead would be difficult, but Anna knew that change was possible. For the first time in a long time, she felt a glimmer of hope. The power of truth had already brought the Vance family to their knees, but now it had the potential to lift them up again, if they were willing to do the hard work. Anna had done what no one else could, and now it was time for the Vance family to take responsibility for their actions and begin to rebuild from the ground up. As the conversation ended, Anna felt a sense of resolution. She had exposed the truth, and now it was up to those who had caused the harm to make things right. The future was uncertain, but Anna knew that she had taken the first step in ensuring that the Vance family could never go back to their old ways. The truth had set her free, and in the process, it had the potential to free them as well. The months that followed marked a turning point, not only for Anna but for the entire Vance family. The weight of the truth had forced a reckoning, and now the family was grappling with the consequences of their actions. The media frenzy eventually settled, but the damage to their reputation was permanent. Callahan, despite his efforts, could no longer control the narrative. The once admired patriarch had become a symbol of corruption, his empire falling apart piece by piece. But for Anna, the path forward was clearer. She had done what no one else had the courage to do, expose the truth, and it had cost her. It had cost her the illusion of safety, the quiet life she had once known. But it had also given her something greater, a sense of justice and strength she never thought she possessed. In the months after her confrontation, Callahan worked tirelessly to make amends, not only with the media, but also with the people they had wronged. His once sharp, controlling demeanor had softened. He was no longer the man who built his empire on deceit. Instead, he was a man trying to rebuild his life with honesty, even if it meant losing everything he had worked for. Delilah, too, had changed. Her cold, calculating nature had been stripped away, leaving behind a woman who was left to reckon with her own conscience. The family began to slowly pick up the pieces, facing the difficult task of rebuilding not just their wealth, but their moral foundation. Anna had become a reluctant symbol of truth, and her courage had sparked something inside Callahan that he never thought possible. He had always been focused on control, but Anna had shown him that sometimes letting go of control and accepting the truth was the only way to move forward. One afternoon, Callahan invited Anna to meet him in his office. This time, the atmosphere was different. Gone were the defensive walls he once hid behind. He was vulnerable now, and his voice trembled slightly as he spoke. "I've lost everything, Anna. But through this whole mess, I've gained something I never had before, self-respect." Anna stood across from him, unsure of how to respond. She had watched him crumble, but she had also watched him try to pick himself back up. "It's not going to be easy," she said, her voice steady but understanding. "But you're doing the right thing." Callahan nodded, his eyes filled with a mixture of regret and resolve. "I've hurt a lot of people. I can't undo the past, but I'm doing everything I can to make things right. And I owe you that, Anna. You were the one who made me see the truth." As the conversation ended, Anna realized that, despite everything, there was something redemptive about this journey. Callahan had come to terms with his mistakes, and the Vance family was slowly trying to rebuild, not just their wealth, but their moral compass. The truth had changed everything, and it had made them all face the reality they had tried to avoid for so long. As Anna walked away from the mansion that day, she felt a sense of peace. The fight for justice had been long and painful, but in the end, it had led to change. The truth had not only set her free, but had also set the Vance family on a new path, one where honesty, integrity, and redemption were now at the forefront. For Anna, the journey was not over, but she knew that the hardest part was behind her. The truth had won, and she had become a part of something much bigger than herself, a force for change in a world that often valued power over integrity.